Hi, good evening all. Okay, so we're going to start our first conversation in 10 minutes. But before this, we're going to make a little bit introduction on us and on our first guest, Tom Hunter. Okay, so my name is Tsendpurev Tsegmid. I run a small organization in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. So it is called Vanjil Art Institute. Vanjil is the name of my grandfather. Anyway, so I have this introduction text written down, so I'll read this out, so it is actually much more coherent. Vanjil Art Institute in Ulaanbaatar is delighted to start a new online conversation series with international local artists, thinkers, scholars, and academics and designers on a wide range of topics, including art, photography, design, and science. Since our inception in 2013, we have worked continuously to introduce and educate the public and professionals on contemporary art photography, and conceptual practice and creators practice. What we see as critical to our long-term future is that we can no longer engage art at the level we desire without incorporating in-depth discussions on society and people, politics and state, natural science, life science, computer science, artificial intelligence systems, and health science. While we enjoyed educating, leading the way, we secretly yearned for an opportunity to level up and to become parallel with the fast-changing and fascinating world beyond Mongolia. Our first guest, Tom Hunter, is an internationally renowned artist and professor of photography at the London College of Communication at University of Arts, London. In January 2021, we started a Facebook-based initiative titled Photo Live. This is a local collaboration with Gamma Photo Agency, Baatar Foundation of Documentary Photography, and other photographers and artists. And this is basically to establish an online educational platform aimed to increase understanding and awareness of photography as art, photographers as artists. Partially, this was driven by the pandemic and the ongoing lockdowns and strict regimes. So in this, at this platform called Photo Live, I started a series called The Photographs Imprinted on My Brain. So for the series 13, I chose Professor Hunter's project called Persons Unknown. This is the project he did in 1997, and especially his artwork called Women Reading Possession Order in particular. So you can actually watch, we actually post the link on our event page. So let's introduce our guest. So he's an artist using photography and film. He currently living in East London. He's a professor of photography at the London College of Communications. He's an honorary fellow of the Royal Photographic Society, has an honorary doctorate from the University of East London. And he has earned several awards during his career, including Rose Awards for Photography at the Royal Academy, London. Tom graduated from the London College of Printing in 1994 with his work, The Ghetto, which is now on permanent display at the Museum of London. He studied for his MA at the Royal College of Art, where in 1996, he was awarded the Photography Prize by Fujifilm for his series Travelers. In 1998, Women Reading Possession Order from his series Persons Unknown won the Photographic Portrait Award at the National Portrait Gallery. In 2006, Tom became the only artist to have a solo photography show at the National Gallery London with his series Living in Hell and Other Stories. His work has been exhibited nationally, internationally in major solo and group shows, including Life and Death in Hackney, National Gallery in Washington, DC, Seduced by Art, National Gallery UK, A Palace for Us at the Serpentine Gallery UK, Another Story, photography from the Moderna Museum, Sweden. He has published 8 books, including Down the Lane, Where Have All the Flowers Gone, and The Way Home. Tom has been commissioned by the Serpentine Gallery London, the VA, the Museum of London, and the Royal Shakespeare Company. His works are in many collections around the world, including MoMA, New York, Tate Modern, and Moderna Museet, Stockholm, Smithsonian, National Gallery in Washington, National Gallery in London, and Los Angeles County Museum of Art. Okay, so our series is a nonprofit initiative. So you will be able to access our talks and conversations with our distinguished guests for free from Facebook live stream. And we will also upload the video form to YouTube, so you will be able to enjoy our series for free. But with the international guests, we have to really talk in English. So it would require us to actually translate the conversation to Mongolian. So if there is anyone in any organization wants to support us for the translation and subtitling, please contact us. So it will be really amazing if we can make these conversations into Mongolian as well. Okay. So we are planning to talk around 60 to 90 minutes, depends how this conversation goes. I've sent 3 questions to Professor Hunter, and it's actually mostly about his work. It's based on his work. We have 3 topics. Number 1 topic is photography as art. Number 2 is photography as a documenting tool of real people's stories. Number 3 is photography as research. So all these topics are about his projects, and we have taken examples of his works, and we'll show as we actually speak on these topics and we hear how Professor Hunter thinks and how he sees his works and projects. In particular, some of the artworks are some of the very famous artworks he produced over his 26 years of career. So in 2-3 minutes, Tom will join us. In the meantime, for anyone who might be interested to read more on these topics, this is a book I have, which I bought when I was studying in the UK. So this is the 3rd edition. There are 3 editions. I think there should be at least 4th edition came out by now. This is 9 years ago. So Tom's work appears included in this book, you can see. One of his works here. We will talk about this actual series with Tom and ask questions. This is also a 2nd book I have, which I brought it from the UK. So this is where Tom's work also, this is Tom's work, this is Tom's work too. This is a very good book on how to collect contemporary photography works. And if there's anyone in Ulaanbaatar wants to read this book and consult this book, please contact us. We can't give you the book, but you can come to our office and you can actually consult and see this book. So that's possible if you want to see it. And you can also do photocopy of the pages you're interested, so that's available too. Okay, in 2 minutes, we will be joined by Tom. He will be connecting us from London. Hi, Tom.
Oh, hi.
Hi, okay.
How are you?
How are you? We're back.
I'm back, yes.
Okay, so this is the real deal. This is the real discussion.
Okay, brilliant.
Okay. Are you standing?
I am, yes. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. It doesn't matter.
Oh yeah, we move around a little bit. It just makes me a bit
Okay,
more.
okay, good, good. All right, Tom. So I did introduction on your career, and also I did also introduction on what you've been doing for last 25, 26 years. You know, it's a long time, but you have done so much and so well. So I'll be dishing out compliments all throughout this conversation. So you need to get used to it from the beginning. I don't do this so often. Anyway, okay, so since I've sent you 3 questions and topics we can, actually talk about. The first point I would like to raise is as photography as art. So especially taking example of your project, Persons Unknown, which is a very personal and political project. But you were one of the people. You were one of the persons unknown, and it's just so inspiring, I think, to be able to be in that position and also produce the quality of work you did, So at which point the photograph transitions or becomes art or artwork, we say sometimes. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few different angles to come at this from. I suppose the intention is predominantly the driving force behind it. I wanted to make a piece of artwork, and which would talk about my situation and the current political situation. So I was living in a squat, I was homeless, and as a community, we'd taken over abandoned buildings. And I wanted to make work which could help that situation, to stop the evictions and to save our community. And the only voice that I thought I might be able to use was the voice of art. So my intention was to make a piece of artwork. So from the start, that was the idea of doing that. So if when I take a picture on Instagram, I don't really think that that's going to be art. That's not my intention. The pictures I take normally on Instagram are just to inform people what I'm doing or to talk about my daily life. But I wanted to make something which had a meaning and a resonance and would speak to a wider community and would be taken seriously. So that was very important. So I wanted to capture my neighbors, my friends, the people I live with.
And people you care about.
The people I cared very much about, yeah. I mean, my girlfriend, my best friends, we all lived together in this community. I wanted to save that community. And there were lots of people taking pictures of such communities at that time. But most of the pictures were taken, in black and white, and they were put into local newspapers or national press, and people look at those pictures and they would discard them. At the end of the day, after reading an article, they would look at the picture and go, "Oh, that's sad," or "That's good," and then they would chuck the newspaper away. So the image would come and it would go very quickly. And I wanted to make something which lasted, which is a testament, was a document of that time, and also would give sympathy to my subject. So when people look at it, they would resonate with the people, they would feel a sympathy, and they would maybe want to act on that. So the way I photographed as well was, I did it over a long period of time. I mean, the project was nearly a year's work. I was shooting on a large format camera, which meant, a big old-fashioned camera with large negatives, which is very time consuming and very expensive. So I took it very seriously. And then when I went into my friends' houses, if I took a picture on my small camera, before we had mobile phones, people would make funny faces and joke and we would take a snap, and it was all great and funny. But when I took the pictures with the big camera, it was very expensive and it was on a tripod. So people took me more seriously, and they thought I was taking the whole subject more seriously.
Yes.
And then the price of it. So there was a whole gravitas around the way I worked as a craftsman or as an artist, or someone taking the subject very seriously. So that's the intention and the way I worked that I think comes into it. If an artist from Vermeer, he would put
Yes.
the days in front of his subjects, and he would put his life and soul into the work. And I think that resonates through the artwork. So I really wanted to talk about that. And then, of course, to sort of amplify that as well, I referenced Vermeer in the actual photograph.
Yes.
So that gives it a layer of history, a layer that I'm aware of the past. I'm aware of artists using their creative skills to document the life around them. And because of an artist who is so great as Vermeer, worked in that way, and he portrayed the people around him in his hometown in Delft, those ordinary people of Delft became as important as the kings and queens and the generals and the popes of that era, because most artists who were commissioned, they would paint the most important people in society. They wouldn't paint the ordinary people on the streets of Delft.
Yes.
So Vermeer was also, in some ways, very political, that he didn't do it just for money. He did it for his passion. And then people look back and said, this is art. So that comes into as well, And then who considers your work to be art, It
Yes.
doesn't matter.
I
If
do.
I say my work is art, I can say my work is art, but if everyone else says no, it's not, then it's not, or it might be to me and my mum, and that's it.
You mentioned
Validation.
yes, you mentioned about the Vermeer as the inspiration behind not just the actual composition, but also the actual content and context. So
Yes.
with all the images, because we can actually show the images on share screen. Just 2 seconds. Okay, so start from here. So this is the famous image, photograph, and this has been, I think I've seen it first. It must have been more than 15 years ago, I would say. I think it must be that, because I came to UK in 2004. So it was just one of those images just stuck with me for this long time. And just imagine how many exhibitions and books I've seen and artists I've seen over 8 years period of time in the UK, So it's just one of the few that really, I can't get this image out of my head, actually. So it is so poignant and it is so impactful image. It's just amazing, really. Even though it was, I think that the amazing balance you struck with this series, especially, is that it is kind of social documentary in one hand, right? Because everything is happening is true. This is exactly what is happening to these real people. And at the same time, this is very, very personal project for you. So how do you balance it? I mean, you are so invested personally, and at the same time, you also you assumed responsibility to give these people voice. Let's say the ordinary people. So how do you balance this? How do you keep your emotion in check and produce good quality of work?
Yeah, I suppose you don't keep anything in check. I mean, you work instinctively. The woman in the photograph here is my very good friend of mine. We're still really good friends, Philippa, and her daughter there, Saskia. She was my next door neighbor at the time. She's reading an eviction notice. We're being faced with eviction. The police, the bailiffs, the council want to destroy our community and knock down the houses. But for me, I just saw beauty. When I visited my friends and their houses, I saw beauty around me. And I've been evicted from properties before. So for me, it was just so important to capture this time to the best of my ability. So that was all I really wanted to do, was to document what had happened there, to capture it and have it as a document to these beautiful lives, this beautiful community. And it wasn't until afterwards really that I thought, how do I put these together and how do I show them? And I think that's, I think if I never thought for a moment that someone from Mongolia would be interested in this picture. That seems totally bizarre, When I took this picture, I thought I'd be taking it for my friends in East London, and they would appreciate to see how we lived. And that would be, it'd be just us looking at ourselves and saying, look, we've done something great. But it's interesting because we're all so passionate about our community and about our neighborhood and about where we lived, that I think everyone understands that. So you can see that it is, even if you've never lived here, I think you can see that the relationship between the woman and the baby and our house, and we can all imagine being evicted in this situation. So I think it creates empathy.
Yes.
And, you could imagine someone in Gaza today who's been having their house destroyed. You could imagine someone in, Syria. You could imagine people in all sorts of situations around the world. So I think because I made it so personal, it became universal. But it wasn't, it's easy to say that, 30 years later. But at the time, I just wanted to do the best job I possibly could about creating a beautiful image. And then
that's all that matters. Can you tell me how many shots you took in total? I think there are 8 images. There were 8 images on your website in total. Have you taken many, or was it just, I don't know, 30 or 40 or less?
It's probably less. I probably did maybe 10, 12 in this actual series. But at the same time, I was doing lots of other pictures of my friends. But these ones that we're seeing now are just the ones that I particularly focused on Vermeer. I got really interested in, the Dutch painters, the golden age of Dutch art. And like I said before, they were the first ones who portrayed ordinary people, the ordinary people columns.
Yes.
Now,
I'm showing the actual notice. This is a court order, right? This is a real signed and dated, so addressing to any person. So there's no name on it because they don't actually know who living on these premises. So it's quite amazing. You have this actually a copy of this. This is the history.
I have lots of these actually. I have a whole file of it. All my friends.
You should make
all
a
my
book.
Friends were evicted. We all kept our eviction notice, all dressed as persons unknown, and it's very impersonal. They wouldn't call you by your name, so we just called persons unknown. So by taking the pictures, I made it very personal. So it's like you said before, it's a very personal project. I really wanted to convey that these were lives, they were real people with families and ambitions and hopes and dreams. So they made it very impersonal, just with the text, black and white print. And I did the opposite. And I think,
And tell us what happened when you showed these images, these photographs to the authorities. I think this is a very amazing twist in this.
It was amazing the reaction I got from these pictures. And it spearheaded or became a part of a campaign to save our community. And we did save our community. I think the local authority, the council, were quite taken back by the amount of support that we got from the pictures. And before they could just say we were we were unlawful, we were squatters, we didn't belong there. And then suddenly we had a presence. So that changed everything, and they had to reconsider their plans. And it wasn't just me, and it wasn't just my pictures, but that was a part of it. But we did save the houses, we did save the community. So I live just around the corner now, but my friends are still there. Their children are there. My children go to local school.
Oh, do you
So
mean from the corner of where this picture was taken? You live now?
Just 2 minutes walk.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so
you haven't traveled so much.
No, I was there for 15 years, but I've been in, I've been in the area, so I haven't moved more than 100 meters in over 30 years now, 35 years. So I feel very, very much part of the community. So that was very important to make work which talked about the community, which helped the community, and was part of the community. So that was very important. And then also, when my work got shown, I was very surprised because, it was put in the Guardian newspaper, which was amazing. It got put into Country Living magazine, and it won the portrait, the photography portrait prize of the year at the National Portrait Gallery in London.
Yes, amazing. Yes.
So then it got a really big viewing. A lot of people saw it, so there was a lot of attention given to our community. So that was very, very useful for us, and obviously for me, for my art career to take off as well. So, and then the validations came, from having it there. Then that's what really makes it art in other people's eyes, because Saatchi bought a copy, and the Victoria and Albert Museum bought a copy, which they have on display. It was in the National Portrait Gallery. So all these people in the art world all bought into it, and then told each other that it was art. So that validated it. And then a picture isn't just my property. It isn't just my idea. It belongs to a culture and a community and an art world. So then it changes everything. And that you can never predict, and you can never, you dream about these sort of things, but it very rarely happens. But that's when art becomes authenticated, as it were.
Yes, of course, yes. Because, for example, before I came to the UK to study, anyone who haven't been to the UK and to London, we have very rose-tinted view of London and also the UK. We think everybody lives in a castle. We think, all these stereotypes of UK. And the situation was quite different. I mean, I lived in Leeds for 8.5 years. I must have lived in quite cheaper, housing states. But because I was so far away from London, I would only make maybe twice a year journey to London to see some of the best exhibitions, I really wanted to see. And I never got to see the London you are portraying, but through art, through your project, I do. So this is the London I would like to see as a researcher, as an artist, and as a creator want to see, because this is what I feel the real and genuine and authentic people of London, not the PR and marketing, the glossy images of London. I mean, there are sides of London, of course, glossy and, expensive and all that. But at the same time, I'm attracted to authentic portrayals of people, and your ability to make it into, let's say, artistically, pleasant to the eye is very important, I think. And it's really amazing how you struck this balance. Okay, let's talk about the next project, because this is also a very, very great project. I mean, we can talk about your project for 10 hours, I would say, but I mean, I had to choose, among them. So how do you see, especially in your project, in a Journey Home 2018 project, because you're known to have real people in your projects, and you don't seem to use many artists, or let's say professional actors in your projects, but I mean, maybe you did. But from the website, I can see they are mostly real people with real stories. So they are in kind of documentary side to it, but at the same time, they're also artistically very, very good, in my opinion. So, so what do you think? I mean, or how important is it to choose real people as your subjects in your art? So what if there's a situation where you have a commissioner maybe, and then there are no real people? You know, they're professional actors. So what would be the actual difference? And why do you keep coming to real people for your projects?
Yeah, I mean, photography is quite an interesting medium, that it has this relationship with the real world. So when you look at the photograph, you believe it's real, even if it's not. And I love that documentary quality of photography. That's one of the first attractions for me, that people looked at the world through a photographic lens, and they showed me places I could never visit. You know, places like, you know, this incredible place like Mongolia. I've never been there, but it looks incredible from what I've seen, or Afghanistan or Africa. So we can see places and we believe these places really exist. So photography has really got its feet on the ground, or in reality, and I love that. But I also love, you know, I love seductive, beautiful images. So I want to combine that, and I want the audience to engage with my images. I want them to be seduced by my images and to be involved and invested in these real life stories. So I love people. I love people's stories, and I love the world around me. So I want to, and I love telling stories. So people tell amazing stories. So everyone I meet, whether it's down in the pub or on the street, wherever it is, everyone has always got something amazing to tell me about their lives. And that's what I love to do if I can through photography. I'm not a writer. I'm not someone who writes books, but through art, I try and tell stories. So something like A Journey Home, you know, I'm always, you know, I'm very involved with people who are the underdogs, or the people who have a tough time in society. So, you know, we felt like the underdogs or the underclass when we were homeless. We were living in abandoned buildings. And then I've taken that on. I feel as though it's almost like a moral crusade, that I can help other people to highlight problems within society. So in A Journey Home, lots of these people were refugees. You know, they came from Afghanistan, they came from Syria, they came from different parts of the world, and they ended up in this place. So I wanted to portray them, but also get them to tell their stories. So yeah, that's what I love to do. And they've all got such incredible stories. And I think, you know, as a human being, I feel we all need to help each other out. You know, we all have hard times and we all struggle. So I feel as though, you know, it's our duty to, you know, if someone turns up in this country and they've lost their home, they've lost their family, I think we should try and help them. As a human being, I think that's a good thing to do. So if I can help to create an atmosphere where these people are more accepted in society, then I think I'm doing a good job. So that's what I'm trying to do. And it was the same with my friends, the earlier pictures. All I was trying to say was, we're not antisocial. We want to be part of society.
Yes.
We want to be integrated into it, and we don't want to be victimized or scapegoated. And that's what I've done with all my projects. So, and that's, yeah, at the moment I'm taking pictures of, you know, Holocaust survivors.
Wow. This is a
So
new project.
It is, yeah. So it's going to be showing in the Imperial War Museum in August for the 75th. Oh. Hello?
Yes, yes. I
Oh,
have you.
sorry. Okay. Sorry, something happened. I can't see you anymore. What happened there? That's strange.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Yeah.
Okay, no worries. Well, I can see you. Everything is fine on this end.
Okay. Yeah.
Can
Okay,
you?
I've got it. Sorry.
Okay,
For some
okay.
reason, just a few. Sorry. Yeah. So it's for the 75th anniversary of the liberation of the death camps in Nazi Germany. So I'm taking picture of these people who are obviously elderly now and telling their stories. And again, these beautiful people who suffered, they've come to the UK. So I'm doing people in London, and they've made homes here, they've made lives. And we try and learn from the history of helping each other out when people are in trouble. So, yeah.
Well, we should do another discussion at the at the opening of the exhibition, or
Yeah,
maybe
that's great. Yeah.
a few days after. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's show some of the images from the Journey Home project.
Yep.
What's amazing is for this project, all these people, as you say, they come from just all over the place, are they? I mean, from every
Yeah,
part of.
this guy is called Ali, and he's from Afghanistan. So he was a refugee who ended up in England. So I really wanted to, capture the beautiful light of England in almost like a turn away with that, with the sky. And also, we got into long conversations. All these people were taxi drivers. So they'd ended up in this small town in England, and they'd all become taxi drivers. So they were doing this journey within a journey. So their journey to England and their journey around the place where they lived. So they would take me to the places where they felt had a resonance with them and their homeland. And then we would interview them, hear their stories. And we had a soundtrack of their lives and how they came to be in this country. And it was quite an amazing experience because I was doing lots of these shots, very early in the morning. This guy was actually a local in Hastings. So it was a mixture of refugees and people who spent their whole lives. This guy had tried a troubled upbringing in Hastings and the estate that he lived in. So it was all part of trying to integrate all the different parts of society. So they were all seen as equal, not one person, not the rich, not the famous, but different people had a chance to talk about their situation, their lives.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gary. So his name is Gary.
This is Gary, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here, this is another man who'd actually spent all his life in Hastings. So we're trying to get the balance. So we're trying to, it was about integration and about sharing a space and to bring in a new. So lots of people would do just pictures about people who've been there the whole lives and then the new people. And I was trying to mix these people up to show that, someone had been here his whole life was important as someone who had just arrived as a refugee and was trying to create his life. So giving equal space and dignity. I mean, dignity is a big thing with my pictures. I want to show them respect with the images. This man was from actually from Russia, and he'd been in Hastings for 10 years. And I sort of setting up a narrative. So they would take me to a place which felt special for them. This felt special in his relationship to Russia. And they were thinking about the nature and his relationship to it. So it was a lovely project.
It does look like a Russia, I would say.
Actually, after this picture, he took all his clothes off and dived into the lake and went for a swim. So
how Russians do that.
Exactly. Involved in the nature, that's right. Yeah. This man was from Germany, and he was telling about how he arrived in Hastings. So it's multicultural,
Very multicultural.
Yeah, and diversity and learning to live together and to share spaces together. This guy was from Syria, and he had some incredible stories to tell about, being kidnapped in Syria, being tied up, being put in the back of a van, taken away, about his problems with his family and the struggle that he spent to try and get here to this country, and now how he's built his life and raising a family. He's working, he's paying his taxes, so contributing to society. And this is all as well, I think we should say, it's in a backlash of Brexit, where lots of people in this country have become very scared of immigrants, about different people, and wanting to withdraw from the wider world and not trusting different types of people. So I really wanted to, give a voice to lots of different people so we can think about living together. This woman was actually from America, again, a taxi driver. So we have some women here as well. So again, different types of people, their relationship to nature, to sea. And we can all see that we all love the same things. We all love nature. We all love being part of the environment. We all have these same hopes and dreams.
Yes.
And we just want to get on together, build our families, build our lives, build our homes.
Yes. Nassim Sommerfeld.
Yes, Nassim. Yes, yeah. He was from Syria as well. So I mean, the actual dead pigeon there is sort of almost like a symbol of, the dead dove, the dead dove of peace. What's happening to his homeland, what's happened to his family up behind. And the motives within these pictures as well, that hopefully, these pictures are printed up as well. When I make these pictures, they're 1.5 meters long.
Wow,
by
that's big.
meters. So they are big prints. So when you go to the actual museum or the gallery, they become quite epic as well. So hopefully you get the same sort of feeling as when you go to a national gallery in London, that you get caught up in the narrative. It's almost like a still from a film, where you have to contemplate these actors. This woman here is from Poland, so it's quite interesting. There's been so much talk about the Polish coming to this country, and we need to leave.
I remember that.
Yeah. So that's all part of it. So you think about where does she live, where does she from, and when you've got this big print in front of you and there's a frame on it, hopefully it works as you go to the Louvre or the National Gallery or one of these big museums. When you see a narrative happening and you put yourself into the person's image, as it were, and you think about their situation, and hopefully you can sympathize and understand, hopefully, the situations that these people are going through.
Yes, she's like us, and like us, she has needs and she has desires and hopes and dreams, as you say. She's amazing. You also, this is, his name is Wahab.
Yes.
Wahab.
Right, yes. Yeah, and there's some amazing places in England. I mean, and England is also an incredible place, in for good and for bad. We have a legacy of empire, of colonies.
Looks
the British
amazing.
have gone around the world, exploited countries from Africa to Asia, to America, to Australia. They've exploited people and countries, and that heritage we brought back to our country, and lots of it is amazing. This building is in the small town of Hastings, where this Indian palace is being recreated in this house in Hastings. And then we're part of that. We're part of a global world, and we need to respect the people that come from there and the cultures and celebrate it. I mean, we are in my country so much better off for that. We have the greatest food in the world, I think, in London because of the Asian diaspora, the Indian restaurant.
Yes.
the Thai restaurants,
I
all
do
these
know that
incredible,
actually.
yeah, all
There
these
was
people
a
would
there was a
come here.
sushi place.
Yeah,
I think it was must have been 2011 or something, and I still can remember the taste. It was just the best sushi ever, ever. I
yeah,
haven't tasted the same similar taste ever actually.
yeah. I mean, we're
Amazing,
so,
amazing
yeah,
cultures and places. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, London is an amazing city for that. The people that have come here and made it incredibly rich and beautiful. Yeah, these are some of the paintings that I was inspired by.
Yes, inspired by, and I just can't help thinking that seeing all these photographs, they don't seem to be photographs; they seem to be paintings. I just cannot, distinguish the two. I think this is just let's just talk like a paintings. There's no difference on your art, I would say. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's part of the process as well. The equipment I use. I mean, I use this, as I said, this large format camera, which is a big
Yeah.
camera. I have to have a blanket over my head. I have to use a tripod, and each photograph takes a long time. It's not a
Yes.
snap. I don't run up to people and click in front like this. We had to spend a long time, and it gives the sitter, the person in the photograph, a real feeling that I'm taking their lives seriously. So I think they
Yes.
calm down and they take it more seriously. And then there's a sort of gravitas, as I said earlier, with this working in this way that really slows you down,
Mm.
and you really absorb the atmosphere rather than grabbing at the atmosphere. And some of the exposures can be quite long. So I
Mm.
do feel in some ways that I act like the old painters in a way. They
Mm.
have their easels. They spend a long time in front of the subject, in front of their easel, and they add layers upon layer of paint. Um, and I build up in that same way. I build up, where the girl would stand, the light, how I position the camera. This picture was taken. Lots of these pictures were all taken before the sun came up. So this was taken at around, I think it was 5 o'clock in the morning. So
Mm-hmm.
the taxi driver would pick me up and we would record her story as we drive into these places. She
Ah,
would take me
okay.
to these places, and then we'd do the pictures before the sun came up. So you get these incredible skyscapes. And I was very interested in, these amazing lights, and the way that the world looks so differently. And like at the
Mm.
moment, I'm looking outside and it's a typical English grey flat day with everything looks bland and boring. But if you plan your day out or you wait for the right day, you can get some beautiful light and it looks magical,
It
before the
does. It
sun
does
comes
really
up.
look magical.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the world does look magical, in that time of the day. So and I was very inspired by, in this case, Turner. Turner went to Hastings, and
Yes.
he was incredibly interested in the seascapes and the skyscapes and the light and how that magical quality transforms an environment. So I wanted to give it that magical touch, which hopefully captures the audience and makes them want to engage with the subjects and the situation, the place. So
And
yeah,
it does very effectively, I would say. So this project was done in 2018, so this is fairly recent. And I mean, so in some ways you are going against the trend. Everybody's having, very high spec cameras, with different kind of lenses, and they can, all they talk about is the speed, this is faster than this is faster than this. So these camera companies, they're producing these all kinds of new models. I mean, maybe a couple of them in every 1 year. Everybody's kind of racing in some ways to produce more image and more image. So, I mean, especially, in London, there are so many, photographers, amateur and all else, kind of affected by this ridiculous speed of producing art or photography or photographs. I mean, how do you see yourself in, I don't know, in 10 years? I mean, do you think you will have similar approach, or do you think you will kind of change?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's hard to know. I mean, yeah, I am a dinosaur in the way that I use film. Most people don't want to use film anymore. And most people want to use, like you say, these very fast, very efficient computers, really, with lenses on them, which do
Yes,
things
yes.
for you. And there was a time when everyone was talking about, you know, what camera to use, what lens to use. And I bought a camera 20 years ago, and I've still got it, and it still works fine. I don't need to do anything with it. And that's what I'm working with. And it has great results. So I don't need to change that. But I do change a little bit from time to time. That's nice. In fact, I've been using a 10-8 camera, which is even older. It's from 1960, and the
Okay,
lens
great.
negatives are this big. So and I'm shooting on black and white. So I'm going backwards and backwards and backwards in some ways.
Okay.
And I don't want to get caught up with this technological race. I mean, if you use work which talks to an audience, that's what all you need to do, really.
Yeah.
In fact, there was a time when I got so bored of that conversation that I actually made myself, through a friend who I work with, Paul Smith at college, a pinhole camera. And for little projects, that's all I used. Because that's all you need is just a tiny little hole and
Yes.
some film. And it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter about the rest. And those results, I think, are beautiful. The results I got of that. I was doing photographs in churches and synagogues and mosques and chapels all around me, using really long exposures, and the colors and the atmosphere was amazing. So I think people do get a bit caught up in what technologies you use.
Yes.
And actually all you need is a passion and an understanding, and a sympathy for your location. It's what you've got inside, really, that makes a difference. So
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
but
Completely.
hopefully they won't stop making films. So as long as they keep on making film, I'll still be shooting it. But it is expensive, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you find a new idea for your projects? For example, you mentioned about the project you're doing now for the 75th anniversary. So, for example, okay, so this project is going to be finished and you're going to exhibit in August. And then do you have other ideas now thinking, or how do you find ideas and then you kind of act on it? How does this process, happen?
Yeah, lots of different ways, really. If something sparks you off. And at the moment, I work on a few different projects. Some of them over longer periods and some of them shorter periods. So at the moment, I'm also working on a project about Lawrence of Arabia.
Okay.
So he was a person from where I grew up in the country in England, and he went to the Middle East and he fought with the Arabs to try to give them their homeland and liberate them from the Ottoman Empire. So I find that story really interesting, of someone traveling from a small village to go to the Middle East to help people he didn't know anything about, and he learned the language, he learned the customs, and he helped the people. And then, yeah, the Arab people won their independence, the Ottomans, but then they were betrayed by the British and the French, who actually divided up the Middle East between them. And then we're still living with the consequences of that division, those lines in the sand. As we see on the news today with the Palestine-Israeli conflict, which is going on at this
Yes.
moment, still
Yeah.
from that, and Syria. So I've been working in Jordan, and he spent some time there. I'm going to the deserts, and I've also been working with refugees from Syria. And so I've been going to different parts. I've been going to France and work with different refugee groups. So I'm very interested in the history. What can history teach us about our modern day lives. So I'm very interested in the contemporary, but also to put it into a historical context.
Yeah.
So why are there refugees in England from the Middle East?
Yes.
They don't just come out of nothing.
Yes,
They come
exactly.
out from
Exactly.
imperial greed from
Mhm.
European powers. So
Yes.
that's part of my legacy. I'm from this country, and this country has done many terrible things around the world, and it's important to understand the history so we can try and make the world a better place. So I've
Yeah.
been working on that for a long time scale project. So history, people, and art, and then I do shorter pictures. I'm also very interested in the landscapes around me, the
Mhm.
English side, and some of the historical monuments and figures. So from the Neolithic stoneworks to hill carvings. So there's lots of I'm
Uh-huh.
inspired by people, by places, by history.
Yes.
And then
Wow.
sometimes you're lucky. Sometimes you're lucky that you meet someone who says, let's work on this project together. Let's fund this project together. So I was invited to Amman in Jordan to work on my Lawrence project. And I had a show there. And yesterday I was talking to a friend, she's from Italy, from Sicily. And we were talking about we're going to try and do a project in Sicily. And that's an amazing place because it's got one foot in Europe and one foot in Africa, one place in Christianity and one place in the Muslim world. So there's lots of intersections between cultures and religions, and it's a beautiful city. So we might try and do something around the different histories and cultures that make up Sicily and the incredible architecture, so the legacy of the different types of people that arrive there, which is
Yes.
really
Wow. I'm so looking forward to see them.
yeah, me too. I hope I can do it, yeah.
So from what I see is that you incorporating so many elements in your art. I mean, it's documentary, it is artistic, it is also based on research. It can also be, well, it can be also be about history and also can create history, because I mean some of the projects you've done in London, in the inner cities, I mean, some of the places and some of the people are maybe no longer with us, So in some ways, you are creating and documenting those lives, and I mean, some of the parts of London, I imagine, has changed so much. I mean, over the 10, 20 years. So to approach photography as research, I mean, especially in numerous reviews of your works, I mean, you were credited in, I mean, documenting and researching, exploring this urban Britain in 21st century, and especially in the project Life and Death in Hackney. This is such an amazing and intimate project, and it just really moves me, and because I mean, art is, for many, many years, many hundreds of years, and especially when I was started studying art in Mongolia, and we would actually, there was a lesson called the World Art History, and all we would actually research and the artworks were about, as you say, about these kings and queens and amazing horses and amazing tires, and there were very little art on people, real people and genuine people, and people, like you say, underdogs and really struggling, but still they are trying to survive like we do. So talk to me about this project and how this came about, and how now looking back, I mean, this is a while ago now. How do you see this project?
Yeah, I mean, photography is incredibly lucky in a way that as soon as you take a picture, it becomes a document of a time and a place and of the people. And some of my projects, when you look back on them, the resonance becomes more and more interesting, more powerful. Life and Death in Hackney, for example, most of that work was taken on an post-industrial landscape of around Stratford and Hackney and then around the River Lee. So there used to be up until the sort of 1970s, lots of factories, warehouses, different types of buildings that took up this whole space. And then these places became deserted. So this is actually, this was actually taken. So it was all about a group of people that came to live in this deserted landscape on the outskirts of London. Actually, this one is slightly different because that was actually taken in Spain. But so this one is a good example. This is called After the Party, and this is actually taken on an old railway line that ran through Hackney. And this was talking about a group of people that I was friends with and I was partying with, who sort of took over these derelict places and made them their playgrounds. So I wanted to talk about the landscape and the way they would move from an industrial society to a post-industrial society to a wasteland where it was all falling apart and all collapsing. And now this picture becomes more powerful now for me when I look at it, because now this is, again, it's a new railway line. So it was a railway line, then it became derelict, and now it's a new overground station. So there's actually, I'll be taking this train later down to South London, across this part, and think about the party we had in this derelict land. And lots of the pictures I took, I was sort of lamenting, the waste and this time. So this, for example, this is one of these big old factories that were built around Hackney Wick. And there were hundreds of these, and we would put on big rave parties, sometimes for 2 or 3 days. Thousands of people would turn up. We'd have big sound systems. We played music for days. So this is my friend. She was part of a sound system. So this is her turning up to this venue before the party had actually started. And it becomes a bit like a church. It became like our church, where you can imagine thousands of people dancing to the DJ. So, God becomes a DJ, as it was the sort of cliche that was talked about at that time with the rave music and the dance music. So that's quite interesting. But now most of these factories, these warehouses have all been knocked down and they've all become luxury apartments. And most of this area is actually the Olympic Park now. So they built the stadium. So it's completely transformed. So the people that I know who lived on the margins here, and they lived, very little money, they would put on illegal parties and raves, and they would live in these wastelands. Now the people that live there are quite often very rich, living in very expensive apartments, and they have big parks around them, the Olympic Stadium. So the whole part, this whole part of London is completely transformed. So, and all these people have sort of had to move away. So it's a real document and testament of a time that's very much disappeared. Underground culture, DIY culture that grew up in this area, which I was very much part of putting on the sound systems and doing something alternative. And that's slowly being sort of dissipated and moved out and destroyed. So
it does look like a still shot from a film. I mean, if you just title it and this was this film, I would actually believe it. This was from a movie, a film. It's amazing. That's part of it,
I really feel as though people are going into a cinema when they stand in front of these pictures and they see this person, this protagonist, and they can imagine, what's happened before, what happens. But in a film, obviously, when you go into a cinema, you sit down and the whole narrative starts at the beginning and goes all the way through to the end, and it comes to conclusion. But with my stories, you're just plonked in the middle. So you, as a viewer, have to use your imagination. Imagine how that girl got there. What is she doing there? What happens next? Do the police raid? Does she get arrested? Is there a big fight? Are there thousands of people enjoying themselves? Are there lots of people taking drugs? Is this part of a huge party? So you make up your own narrative here, which I find quite exciting about photography, that it gives freedom for your imagination to run wild and to do what you want.
Yes, this is, let's go and see the next one.
Yeah, this is, yeah, again, apart from this sort of, yeah, abandoned warehouse again, abandoned cemetery. This is, yeah, no Clissold Park. And again, just talking about these are all also based on pre-Raphaelite paintings. And the pre-Raphaelites were very interested in the beauty of nature and also the social stories that were happening at that time, a time where there wasn't a welfare state, a time where there wasn't, the health service and unemployment payments. So they were very interested in the social dramas that were happening. So I really wanted to create that, but in a contemporary way. So the stories that happen around me with these young partygoers and the problems and the situations that were, some of them were fun, but some of them were quite sad as well. Yeah. Again, this is, yeah, and where the Olympic Park is now.
Yeah.
So all these places have been bulldozed and changed. So it's a very different landscape. So I wanted to show, this is actually, yeah, move on. Yeah, these beautiful people that I was finding around them were living on the margins, but and some people were said were wasters and squatters and undesirable. But I wanted to capture their beauty, but in a very contemporary way. I wanted to talk about the industry and the urbanness to it, but the urban mixed with nature. So the beauty of nature is very important to me. And how do you predict? How do you show nature, and how do you show urban at the same time? I'm very interested in beauty, and how do you depict beauty without it becoming just a cliche? Because I want it to be beauty with a purpose. So in this picture, these industrial arches from the railway line, they almost become like, for me, they become like Greek temples with the arches. So
it does look very beautiful.
Yeah, and through one of these arches, for me, there's the Garden of Eden. So it's nature and the beauty untouched by man. And then the other arch is, hell. These people had their vehicle burnt out. So there's a whole narrative here to these people's lives and the way they live their lives and what's happening here. But I wanted to give it sort of a classical connotations with the Greek and the Roman architecture, even though it's industrial architecture from the Victorian railways.
And it is working very well. It really shows. I mean, I can imagine, for example, this these arches. I mean, if we actually go there and just see it, it might not look like as you actually visualized and photographed in this actual picture, but you made it into something different that changed it, I suppose, in some ways.
Yeah. And again, this is my two friends, Valentina and Valentina. They were Italian squatters. So they'd come to this country with nothing. They'd moved into old abandoned places. And this is an old tennis court. And there's a burnt out motorbike behind them. And they used to put on little parties. We used to put on parties in these wastelands. So again, it's a undesirable area, and these are undesirable people. And the government say, right, we need to bulldoze this, we need to redevelop it. The plants are weeds, the people aren't worthy. But I was saying, these are beautiful people and places. So I was trying to capture that beauty. Again, this is based on a pre-Raphaelite painting.
Yes.
This is based on Ophelia. Which is a very famous painting in Britain. It's in the National Gallery of England. So it's part of the British identity, apart from part of the British culture. So I wanted to make a contemporary version of this, something that talked about my friends and what we were doing, So this is about a friend who falls into a canal after a party. But at the same time, she's lost to the music, she's lost to the night, she's lost to, the whole fun of what we were doing at that time. We were taking over spaces, we were reinventing spaces, we were putting our own entertainment, making our own world out of the chaos, out of the ruins, as it were. And again, the nature, if you took the top of this picture off, it would just be green and beautiful. But I really wanted to show, that it was in London. There are factories there, there are industrial buildings, and also that telephone mast, the mobile telephone mast. So, these contemporary elements that really show where we are, that we're living in the present. This isn't just a romantic dream. This is a reality.
Yes.
But a reality mixed with magic as well. So there's different layers here. The magic of nature, magic of the people, but a document and a reality. The photography always brings us back to, this is real, this is a real person, and it's a real place. So I'm really interested in the contrast between fact, or fiction, and reality. So where is it fiction? What is it about the fiction of this story, and where is the reality? And that sometimes is more fiction or more reality, and that's like a seesaw. And as a viewer, you're never quite sure, is this real, or is this just a fiction? Is this just a story? So you're never quite sure. And I think that's where the magic happens. So I think like, Salman Rushdie, where he talks, my favorite books is Midnight's Children, where he talks about the birth of India as a nation after the British Empire disappears and India becomes its own country. So he talks about that whole history, but he tells it through, in a fictional way, through lives of people, lives of real people's stories, but uses magical realism to illustrate that and to draw the viewer or the reader into a narrative which engages you to learn about history. So someone like Salman Rushdie is a great influence, and novelists and literature are really big influences on my photographs.
You make an important point about, how, art, whether it was photographic art or aiding art, I suppose, how an artist can combine fact and fiction and more. it can be a hybrid piece of work, but in the end, if the result is looking like this, it actually doesn't matter, because I get asked about this many times by local artists and photographers, where they trying to put themselves in certain category. For example, people would say, I'm a documentary photographer, and they would always have to document. They don't seem to interested in the art. But then also there are also segments where they only want to do artistic works. So all these, let's say, they're imposing, some of the people, they're imposing restriction on themselves, really, but the whole point of art, in my opinion, is not to be classed as something, as a photographer or artist or whatever, sculpture or something, but it's about the artwork, right? It's about the actual, what this artwork does to the artist, also to the audience. For example, as you say about the composition on this specific image, that if you just cut that industrial bit, this could turn into very nice, very magical and nice and green. But this is very, this is a lot of melancholia in this image, and it's a sadness into it, but also beauty at the same time. So it's an amazing array of elements you put in and managed to produce this work. This is quite amazing, really. I keep saying amazing many times. I haven't spoken in English for a long time, so I'm a little rusty.
Your English is a lot better than my Mongolian. Yeah. Multi-layers is really important. So some people just look at these pictures and go, oh, they're lovely pictures. And some people go, oh, that's based on a pre-Raphaelite painting. Or, oh, this is the document of that area. another person, oh, that's just a piece of art. So yeah, I really love it when there's layers. So you look at something superficially, you get one reaction, and then you can learn more if you want to, if you become interested or engaged. So again, on this piece of wasteland, something which is considered by people as very ugly area, but I've always wanted as well. Again, I find the beauty in people who are normally overlooked, and again, beauty in places are overlooked. That's very important to look at things with a different eye. So things that are overlooked. Yeah, I think lots of people. There's some amazing nature photographers, but they just concentrate on nature. Like you say, I find that a little bit limiting. So I'm trying to, bring in all the complexities of the world into a picture, because the world is incredibly complex. And it's incredibly diverse.
Indeed.
And that's when it works, I think, is when you can bring in lots of different things and you're not quite sure what's going on. If you make it too easy for your viewer, they just tend to skip over images and not get involved. So obviously, as an artist, you want to create something which troubles, confuses, disturbs, and what is this? Is this a pre-Raphaelite? Is this an art picture? What's going on here? And that's when it's good, because then your audience has to use their brain, have to think about what's going on, have to challenge stereotypes.
Absolutely.
And that's, challenging stereotypes is very important. We need to understand the complexities of life and not live in one-dimensional, two-dimensional stereotypes.
Completely, yes. I mean, just I'm curious about this specific project, Life and Death in Hackney. Did anyone, I mean, there must have been reviews or essays written about this project, but did anyone wrote, because I mean, as you say, it can be any narrative. I mean, for example, if I see one image and then I can make up or create a narrative to these specific images, for example. So I'm kind of looking for opportunity for myself. Because I mean, especially this project, Life and Death in Hackney, is very, very striking project. I mean, there are so many great projects to have, but especially this one. So, I mean, could I, for example, write text, on the images I really love, and create a narrative, just completely out of my head? Is it okay?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, that'd be really
Because
nice.
I actually love writing. I mean, I do also occasionally photograph projects, but I'm more writing now, so it would be really, really amazing to spend some time on some of the images and actually to, just, create new world, through your artworks,
Yeah, well, it's always been one of the most amazing things for me when I started off was you make an image and then it gets shown in an exhibition or a magazine, and then someone writes about it, and then you go, wow, I've never thought about that before. People see your work in such different ways from their different cultural background or their heritage or their different viewpoints. And I find that really exciting. So, I could write lots of things underneath my pictures to make sure that they know it's about my friend who did this and did that and that happened. But I think that takes the magic away from it. So it's really quite amazing, I think, when people create their own narratives around it. So that's very important. And in some ways, I do think as though, they're a bit like children. You create this artwork and you have these very fixed ideas of what you want them to be. But once they're actually made and they go off into the world, they do their own thing. They build their own relationships up with different people, and they say different things to different people. So they're free in a way to do that. And that's really exciting. You don't want to hold on to them and never let them out and never interact with the world. And I've been incredibly fortunate, that picture we just looked at, the Ophelia picture, the way home, that was shown in Prada in Madrid, one of the most important art galleries in the world. So, And people who'd never been to Hackney, never been to my hometown, who've never
Yes.
spoken to me, who don't know anything about me, saw that picture there. And I've had other pictures go to National Gallery in Washington in America, and into MoMA in New York. And that's quite amazing when you think of these different people who see these pictures and they react with your work in a completely different way than you thought about. But I think the main things still always come through, you know, the humanity, the dignity of the people, and the respect, I think. So, but then the other stories, that's really exciting what other people read into as well.
Okay,
So,
thank you. So I do have your permission then.
yes, definitely. Yeah, that'd be wonderful. And I'd love to read it. That'd be really interesting. Yeah, really
Okay,
interesting.
I'll get on it.
That'd be great. Yeah, and I'll put it on my website. Definitely. Yeah.
Sure, thank you. I mean, you've done so many exhibitions. I mean, solo exhibitions and group exhibitions. And because, I mean, what you also did over this time period, I mean, over 25 years, 24 years, is that you've been very productive. Also, at the same time, you've been very efficient in putting out your project into exhibitions, into monographs. And so, I mean, this is a lot of work, right? I mean, you do all this. I mean, you don't have 10 persons, you know, team working behind you. And so how do you manage all this? I mean, it just doesn't seem to be one person's job. I mean, I mean, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I work by myself, so I don't have people working for me, but I've had galleries who've supported me over the years. At the moment, I work with Pody Hits Gallery. I've worked with White Cube Gallery. I've worked with, Yancey Richardson in New York. So lots of people. I've been very, very fortunate. So I've had people at different times who have liked my work, and then they've offered me exhibitions. I've had an exhibition at the National Gallery in London, but obviously
Yes.
I didn't go up to the National Gallery and knock on the door and say, give me an exhibition. You can't have an exhibition like that. So I've been very fortunate that people have come to me or come to my artwork and have invited me to do work in their spaces. So I've been very fortunate that I've had some amazing commissions, and I've worked with some amazing institutions, and I've just been incredibly privileged that my work has been able to get out there. But all I really do is what I try and do is try and make my artwork the best as I can, and put as much passion and belief into it, and then all you can do is hope afterwards that you get to show it to a few people and someone will like it and they go, yeah, we would like to show that in our museum or our gallery or whatever it is. So that's all you can hope for. All you can do is, my bit is tiny. I just do my tiny little bit. And then the work, if it works well, that goes off. It's like having kids, they go and do their own thing. So I don't do much really. I just do much.
Okay. Last question, because I think you promised that we will have another conversation after at your exhibition, right? After you stage the exhibition, of course. So just wants to have it on the record, actually. Currently, you are teaching at the London College of Communication. You are a professor there. So So education, art education is quite big part of your life now, and what do you enjoy most and why do you teach? You don't have to teach, you can just keep up doing your projects. So what is the reason behind teaching, and how do you see your position in, how do you see your positioning, inspires people and students?
I started teaching just one day a week when I first started. So after a couple of years of being freelance, after I left college. And when I work, a lot of the time I work either by myself completely or with maybe I have assistants sometimes to help me. But quite often by myself. So I spend a lot of time researching by myself and then photographing by myself or with, a subject. And it's quite isolating. It can be quite lonely.
Yes.
And I really wanted to engage with a cultural conversation about my practice and about photography and about the art. So I got a job teaching 1 day a week at London College of Communication. And I loved being part of a community again. I loved it when I was studying for my undergraduate and then for my master's. And I find that interaction between younger people and older people inspires me. Obviously I hope to inspire younger people, but basically, they inspire me. Every year we get amazing students who make incredible work, who inspire me. They've got incredible energy and enthusiasm. They've got new ideas. And for me to work there, I have to stay relevant. So I have to make work and I have to engage with the topics and the conversations that are happening around art. I can't just fall back and become a dinosaur. So that's very important. And there's amazing people. So we've got people who have been teaching for longer than me, who create knowledge and wisdom, and I'm part of, they're my peers and people I respect and work with. And then we've got the younger students who have the energy and enthusiasm, who are coming up and they inspire me. And then we have all the technicians and people who are practicing. So you get to see, how to print, and you have all those things as well. So I feel incredibly privileged to be part of that community of sharing in a creative vision, sharing in trying to create and research and to contribute to a cultural conversation within the art world.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect place to be in art.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest creative incubator, I think, in the UK. I mean, as an university, it's one of the biggest. I think it's the biggest European art university, in my opinion, in terms of size. It's a massive, massive driving force. I mean, just amazing.
It's important. Yeah.
And I think the students and the teachers and professors, there are some of the best, in the industry. And I'm sure, the students, they must be so happy to have you as a teacher. I'm sure, I'm sure, I'm 100% sure that, you inspire them at the same time. So.
Yeah, I mean, every year we get amazing students who go on to do amazing things, and being part of that as well, I go to other exhibitions and festivals, and I meet my ex-students who are going on to create galleries, to be great artists, to run magazines. So it's just another, we become a part of a community, which is really important to me. Sharing ideas, sharing visions, trying to help each other out. So that's great.
There's a sense of continuity and the cycle, of helping and supporting and inspiring each other. It's just amazing stuff. Wow, Tom, we spoke like what a long time. But it was just such a pure pleasure, Tom, and thank you for making time for us. And we'll do our best to translate it into Mongolian as soon as possible. And we want to see you again. I don't know. It can be, how many times, it doesn't matter.
It was a privilege to be able to speak to you and people in Mongolia. I mean, this is a sort of dream for me to be able to talk to people from different cultures and different parts of the world. So that's a really amazing opportunity. And obviously, I hope one day maybe I can come to Mongolia.
Of course.
Come to London.
Welcome. There are not so few British businesses here, I would say, and there are quite a few hundred British people here actually live and made their home. So, I mean, anytime. I mean, obviously the winter is very tough, but we welcome to UB, and
maybe
also
we collaborate again in the future. That'd be great. And that's the one thing about art that I love so much is collaborating with different people.
That would be amazing, you know. I mean, we can share ideas via email, and there are a few things I would like to discuss with you from next week, and we can just maybe just generate ideas and how we can make it happen. You know, anything is possible, I would say.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the passion and the drive, and we can make great things happen.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Okay, wow. Okay, thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you
See
so much.
again.
Thank you for listening, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Have a
Take
great
care.
day, Tom. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.